and welcome back to the end of another week. We're up at the second driveway where I get all my stuff. So yeah, we have the horse manure, compost, and mulch. So that's awesome. With the mulch, I've started mulching my row of willow trees. So I'll come up here and just kind of show you. You can now see them quite a bit better. But yeah, all the way down this path, down this fence line, I put in all the willow trees. I think there's about 55 of them every foot or so. So they go all along there and they end right here. So all of that will get mulched to meet the mulch here. We haven't done the fence for the chickens, mainly because I need Francis to help me with that, and he's been dealing with some other stuff, so that hasn't happened. In the garden, I don't know everything that I did this week. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to repeat stuff from last week, but I did like bump up the rhubarb here and sort out that. We have the perpetual kale growing all the way along here. I did dig up some of my sunchokes and I replanted them in that thing. So there's sunchokes in there. And then I think the yacon is going to grow in that tub, but I haven't planted it yet. And in this tub, I'm going to be putting horseradish because I love horseradish. The asparagus crowns went into the ground here. And right now I just have the wood as my little like stepping stones. I had to completely hack down my chives, which were in here, because they developed rust. And then preventatively, I went ahead and sprayed some copper on my other alliums, as well as gave a haircut to these guys. Because with all the humidity, rust was definitely a problem last year. We didn't have it this early. But these guys, like, they were so bad, I just decided to cut them to the ground, and start over. So that's what I'm doing there. I am beginning to harvest and dry, parsley, because I obviously way overdid the parsley when I planted that. Other things, I mean, the big thing is that, like, my beds are finally done after, like, I don't know how many years, 2 years, 3 years. Yeah, we started with like that bed, and then I made this bed, and then I made that bed, and then finally this bed is now done. So 2025 is the first year that I will have all of my in-ground beds sorted out. These guys are, well, this guy I'm expecting to still sink a bit. This one I think is kind of stabilizing, so I'm not going to need as much compost to top him up. This guy is also pretty stable. I probably put a little bit more compost on him than I needed to put, but I have this like little gap here where I have some like cabbages and leeks. So eventually that will all kind of get redistributed. I filled in this space, which is where hopefully my physalis will grow back. And then this year I'm planning on trimming it so that it doesn't become like the giant mess that it was. And the shallots and the garlic are going to stay in the dirt until like May or June. So I just need to try to keep the rust off them because, yeah, last year they got rust, which is like a fungal thing. And this year I'm trying to kind of preemptively avoid that. Over here you can see we did get a decent amount of rain this week. So we'll go ahead and restart that. Francis is still working on hooks. I mean, he's not, he prepped everything and now he's just got to make them. But eventually my lights will actually go onto nice little hooks on the wood things. So I think that'll be cute. Earlier this week, we did get a mild freeze. It went to like -0.1 or something, so barely. But since then, it hasn't frozen. 0.5 is the lowest we've gotten. But I am tracking when our last freeze is now. So I do regularly reset this. Basically, when there is a freeze, I'll reset it to track when the actual last freeze is. And yeah, what else? Oh, my raised beds are done. So last week I was removing the rest of the dirt from here to top up in here. So basically these guys are 2 feet tall and the bottom section is just weeds and cuttings and whatever else I could find from the yard is on the very bottom. And then there's a layer of like the topsoil that came from this bed and then the compost on top of that. So it's definitely like it sinks, which is to be expected. So I'm going to go ahead and top these up a bit more because last year I topped this all the way up to the top and you can see that it's already sunk several inches. So these guys, I also want to go ahead and bring some more dirt over and get them topped all the way to the top. And that way, as they settle, I'll just have to refresh with compost once in a while. It's starting to rain again. So what is happening this week? We need to call the orchard place and see what's happening with our trees because they never got back to us. So I'm still waiting on 3 trees, 2 apples and 1 plum for the orchard over there. And I think maybe this is the week that I'm going to go ahead and kind of preventatively spray my dormant oil to try to prevent any insects from bothering the trees this season. I think this is the week that I had scheduled to do that. All of this stuff, I don't know what I'm going to do with. It'll go somewhere in the garden. I just haven't figured out exactly what. And then this bench is still going to migrate into the chicken area and I'll be getting a bench for that. That might happen this week. I haven't decided yet. Yeah, and what else? I think next weekend, I'm actually expecting my delivery of hay bales. So the hay bales are going to live all along the willow line. And then I got more hay bales than I needed, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to use with the rest of the hay bales, but at least some of them will live along there. And then over here, I'm thinking about actually creating a hotbed or a semi-hotbed to kind of go in the middle here, mainly to use up some of that, well, yeah, to use some of the manure in there and then top it up with compost. And then I'm thinking about planting my winter squash in that bed, and then they can just kind of like have this area to themselves to do what they want. So if I do that, then I'll probably end up basically using these pallets to create like a little, 4 pallet walled space to then dump a bunch of that horse manure in and then top it off with the compost. And then that'll give me a nice spot to plant my winter squash. The summer squash don't get too big, so I'm thinking about leaving them in the garden this year. But the winter squash, last year was my 2nd year in a row of saying that they weren't going to go in the garden, so I'm not putting winter squash in my garden, in that garden. Yeah, and then I think I have a plan for redoing the wiring on the chicken coop. I mentioned that we have weasels apparently, and they can go right through the chicken wire that came with the coop. So I still have some of this like 1/2-inch square hardware cloth. And I'd been thinking about how I wanted to do it, and I think I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and basically have that where it starts on one end and goes all the way up and over to the other end, and then I'll just like keep doing that. So I'm not sure how much wire I need, and I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to start that. But that may or may not start this next week. Other than that, I think that's it for this week. I have some seeds starting indoors, so I might throw up a picture of those. And I have some little seedlings. Oh, and my little greenhouse down there is definitely working. I'll put a snapshot of the thermometer in there. But yeah, it gets to about like 80 high, and it doesn't get below freezing, so that's awesome. I don't have anything growing in there yet, but I was just kind of testing it out for the springtime, since we're almost there, and I'm very eager to get going on the garden. So that's it for this week. I hope you had a good one, and I'll see you next week. Bye.